Hi, I'm going to let everyone come in, but welcome.
Hello, hello, hello.
For those of you who don't know me, I am Miss Kelty. I am the principal here, and we will ask that you stay muted in this format. Unfortunately, I won't be able to see everyone's face, but it is something that brings me joy to see you all again because we tend to be a very in-person group here at ECDC, and so to not be able to have this time face-to-face has been tricky. So I'm hoping this at least provides you some good information. I would like first to I'm going to share my screen, but I want to let people know I am recording this session so that people who aren't able to reach it and for tonight can look back at it. Let me just, I think I got people in. I'm working on learning how to do this still, so I'm still letting some people in. Okay. All right. Once we level off, I think we're good. I'm going to share my screen. This one. All right. And Meg, could you tell me, do you see my presentation?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, so right before we get started, I just want to, in this format, because I can't see everyone, I'm just going to ask that if you have a question, you can use the Q&A section and write your questions, and our task force members will pay attention. Many of you have submitted questions ahead of time, and those are already embedded in this presentation. So I'm going to just kind of walk through it with you. I'm on two screens, so it may not look like I'm looking at you, but please know that I'm just looking at the screen above so I can kind of talk through it. Most of what's in the beginning of the screen is information that was in the newsletter that most of you read, and if you didn't read, it was linked in the email that brought you here. But I wanted it all to be in one place for you to refer back to, so it is in here. So I'll touch on it, but I'm not going to elaborate on those slides. Maybe. All right, so, oh, I guess I gotta keep letting people in. Sorry. Admit. All right, so I just want to first say our reopening task force. We have several members of our task force here with us tonight. Carrie Ann Bartro's here, Linda Canoyer. I believe Chris Dugan's coming. Let's see, Meg Maloney's here. Elizabeth Renard is here. Suzanne Roma's here. And Paula Morano, the Director of Student Services, is also here. So I'm grateful to have everyone here. If I have another member who's popped on, I apologize, but they have been a great team to work with. I do want to just kind of, for the purpose of setting the tone, the decisions that were made and are still being made are really following these priorities. That in-person school for preschoolers has to support the social, emotional, and educational learning of all students, and increase time for students with high needs. We recognize that that's a charge we have. A low class size, we are going under 7. Integrated classrooms, children with and without special needs. Cleaning and sanitizing is a priority. Tuition proportionate to time in school and instruction. Technology needs for classrooms and families, and then keeping our school community informed. The newsletter was the first. Oh, gotta let some more people in. The newsletter was the first of one that will come out every 2 weeks, and this is our first chat, and I will do these again probably every 2 weeks, but maybe every week as information changes, because that is what happens in the time we're in. All right, I'll let someone else in. I'd like to start with our core values, because I think everything that we've done, all of those priorities, really rest on these core values that we really believe in and we honor. So I'm going to leave them in here. I'm not going to go over them now, but understand that's the foundation of everything we're doing. So we're working to bring children back to school, but still to fit within what we believe preschoolers should have an experience and the things they need to know before they're ready to go to kindergarten. So here we were given a task to consider in-person, hybrid, and remote. The district was given that task, and as a preschool, we needed to consider how that would work for us. Again, most of this information you already have. We used the feedback from families on how preschoolers learn, and about being safe and healthy, and about remote learning, as well as feedback from staff. I think this has been an ongoing piece that we've been gathering information and used this to help inform our decisions. We looked at the 3 program options. In person, we are prioritized to be in person as a group of high needs. Preschool works best when we are face-to-face. And then we also, what we know about how little ones learn. Remote learning, we talked about how we would do it and what we would do better. And hybrid, some of both. Basically for us, we don't necessarily see that as a feasible option because our students require teachers' full attention when they're with them. So either one or the other, but to do both is really not something they can manage. Our children, we recognize, are not independent learners. So we really came down to the 2 models of in-person, and this is the one that we're prioritizing, where we're going forward with ensuring the health and safety of students and staff. Students with high needs IEPs are also prioritized. Inclusion and enrollment of community peers is prioritized, and maintaining a small class size. And I really have to give kudos to Paula Morano, the Director of Student Services. She recognizes the value of, especially with our littles, keeping the size small in order to be able to help students and to be socially distant and to still be in a playful environment. So I think that really speaks to where Franklin is, and I really have a lot of respect for that, and I'm very appreciative. And then the remote. We're planning it as a backup. What we learned is we need to do small group size, that a whole class of 15 was too much. 6 might even be too much. A class might be split into 2 groups because that smaller size seemed to work better. Ensuring online and offline opportunities for all, increasing the opportunities to get books and papers and things into people's hands because the schools are not closed. So those are things we can be doing in this new, if we are going remote. I am sharing this slide, which came from Dr. Ahern's presentation to families, which I think was just last night. And I think it's just important to see that from a district's perspective, oh, I gotta let a couple more in. From the district perspective, the preschool is a high needs category just because of the way they learn. Within that, we also have to look at children who have a high needs IEP or visual hearing impairments, foster care, homelessness, English language learners, all of these other layers as well. But I thought this gave some nice information to know where the district is. So the in-person model for ECDC, we've talked about, it really has 6 components. So there's 2 slides here. In our classroom design, we're again going with small cohorts of students under 7. They're designed to encourage social distancing and individual play, but our teaching teams will be able to find creative ways to ensure they can still play together and learn together. And we've been working with the public health nurse and looking at all the guidance to see the ways and how we can still allow children to play, but with lots of hand washing, mask wearing, socially distant, and how do we do that? And I think once we get in our building, we'll be able to figure a lot of that out. Masks will be worn by all, and materials will not be shared. Understand, at this age, we recognize that masks could be developmentally really hard. Sometimes they're scary for kids. They also, some kids, they'll chew on them, they'll eat them. There are things that we know is going to happen. So some kids can't use them due to their disability or a medical special need. Others, they just will need a lot of coaching and support, and we're going to help you with that. That's really important to us, is to provide family support to help their children, and to understand that in our classes, there may be some kids who can't wear masks, but that doesn't mean everybody doesn't need to wear a mask. Cleaning and disinfecting. Of course, this is the time of hand washing. Hand washing is always something we do, but now it's just going to be prioritized, and it's going to be supervised a little more. Children used to wash their hands and did that more independently. It'll be more supervised now to make sure that we're really getting that 20 seconds, hot soapy water or warm soapy water, and getting rinsed. I think that's really important. Toileting procedures, we already do a lot of this. We will maximize the use of PPE. Staff entering classrooms will change PPE. So again, if someone needs to enter a classroom, like a therapist for speech and language or for occupational therapy, those people would change their PPE when they enter, before they enter, and when they leave. And staff will be trained on that, just so that they're really comfortable with it by the time your kiddos come to school. And they'll be cleaning and sanitizing by staff, and then custodial staff. So some of our sessions are morning and afternoon. Staff will clean, and then it will be sanitized by the custodial staff. If kids are coming in a cohort, a Monday, Tuesday, they'll be cleaned at the end of every day and sanitized, but then an extra cleaning can happen on Wednesday when we won't have school. Related services, again, those are those specialists who'll be coming in, but we'll be working to minimize the traveling around the building. So we're still working on some of those schedules. Arrival, dismissal, movement patterns, again, still works in progress, but primarily students and ECDC staff will be allowed to enter the building. We will not be having parents come in. We used to have parents come in often. Unfortunately, that's not going to be the case. But what we can do, as we'll find other ways to help you with your child, and we recognize that there are some times when a parent may need to come in, and there will be protocols in place for that as well. Safe, one class at a time arrival. We're still working on that. I have some good ideas, but our task force will really tease that out, particularly the teachers and the parents. I'm interested in both of their input on making that happen, because I think that's going to be tricky, but I think we can do it. And again, movement patterns around the building to just make sure that we are being safe as we are walking through the building. Outdoor learning is something that, it's something that I really believe in. We have a wonderful garden for that purpose, and establishing multiple outdoor areas for play, mass breaks, and outdoor learning is really important. We've already been talking about it. We have some, but we'll need others. Unfortunately, the playground climbing structure will not be available to us, so we will probably just not use that space because it could be more dangerous and distracting, but we can use space in the garden, and we're working with the town to get some tents and some outdoor spaces at the end of the building, so that it's something we had wanted before. It was a plan we had before to create a nice outdoor learning space. So hopefully we'll get that in place, and it'll be another opportunity, and teachers will be encouraged to teach outside when they can and to take extra time outside, because again, we know that's a safe place to be. Students will wash or sanitize hands when entering and exiting the building. Always, again, we're doing all those same protocols. It's very important, and we'll be helping them because although we have personal responsibility, we recognize our children need some help and support in that area, so we will be helping them. ECDC is a school that serves a lot of families of children with special needs, and one of the, I gotta let someone in, sorry. One of the things that happen is children come into our building for testing. We are proposing a schedule, but again, it all does need to be approved by the school committee, and I'll be presenting to school committee on Tuesday. But we are proposing Wednesday is a no ECDC Kids Day, and that would be the day that families from outside would bring their children in for testing, or if there are IEP meetings that can't be held virtually or some people from outside need to be there, that would be the place that we would do it. And again, we think that is a way to mitigate exposure for your children. So coming from, oh, a couple more people. Taking all of that information together, what we've come up with are really 3 program options that all of our students will fit into. The first is 4 half days, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and that's an AM and a PM session. The second is 2 days, Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday, Friday for 4 hours. And the third is 2 half days, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday for 2.5 hours, and there's a morning and an afternoon session. This does impact the number of community peer slots that we have at ECDC, and I know that that puts us back in a position where we may have to do another lottery, almost another consideration, a rank of who's going to fit where if we have more people. So ECDC, in the time of COVID, will have small class sizes. We will do cohorts where they're divided Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Staff will also be cohorted as much as possible. The idea is that your staff team stays together, and that there is minimal crossing in and out. And if there is, it is with the necessary PPE to make sure everyone, staff and students, remain safe. No school for students on Wednesday. Students on IEPs, and I know in our school we have 2 populations that learn together, and that's one of the best things that we like about what we do, and we still want to be able to offer that moving forward. So students on IEPs will be assigned to a class based on their needs, as indicated in their IEP. So if they have a really high need, they may end up with 4 half days versus 2 half days or something, and that's something the team will think about and will make those decisions. But understand that families will be given the option of AM or PM. However, my experience is no one wants PM. So it may not work that we're not going to be able to serve everyone in the morning. So people may have to be a little flexible, but we really do want you to have an opportunity to share what your preference is. Families of children with special needs will also have an opportunity to meet virtually with their child's teaching team before school begins in September. It's going to be really important that your child's teaching team understand your child's growth, progress, and challenges so that we can take the necessary steps moving forward. For tuition paying families in our community peer slots, those families will be given the opportunity, one more. Those families will be given the opportunity to indicate a preference as well for one of the programs. So what we offered in the spring, what people signed up for, we don't have anymore. We don't have a 5-day option. We don't have a 4-day, 4-hour-a-day option. We just don't have the capacity to do that. And I don't think we can do that safely. I think what we've come up with is what we believe we can do safely to ensure that all students have access, but also in a safe way. We are transitioning to a monthly tuition versus a quarterly tuition, recognizing the challenges that we had when we did end up remote in the spring to no fault of our own. This will allow us to transition. So if you're paying tuition, say, and this technically has to be approved by school committee, but what we're proposing is that if you're paying a tuition and we are really forced because the school has shut down and we're forced to go remote by someone outside of us is what I'm thinking, then your monthly tuition, at the beginning of the next month, you would pay some percentage, but not the full tuition, because you're not here for the full time. We get that and understand that, but that still has to be worked out. Those details would be worked out with school committee. So a transition plan. I did ask for a lot of feedback before this presentation, and I got a lot of great questions. A lot of people are concerned about the transition. Please know that we are too. We want to make sure that you have the tools you need and that we do as well. So some of what you can expect are videos and social stories on topics such as wearing masks, what your teachers look like in masks, what I look like in masks, social distancing, hand washing, and more. There's a whole list of things we're putting together. The district is also doing this because we recognize this is really important. At the preschool level, it may be a little more prioritized. There may be more of them because I think at this level we need to provide a little more guidance. There'll be an opportunity. We don't know what it looks like, but our goal is to have an opportunity for each child to come into the classroom with the parent before school starts, to just, as our orientation, is it you just come in for 5 minutes to see the space, to meet the teacher? I don't know what it's going to look like. We'll talk about that as a task force and think about ways we can do that. But you can expect to have a welcome Google Meet with your child's teaching team. We usually do an orientation where you all come into one space. That won't be safe. But we have presentation of information, and that information can still be shared, albeit virtually. And then there'll be visuals to help your child at arrival and dismissal. Visuals in the playground, on the sidewalks to show where to go and within the building. Again, we're going to help you and support you through this just like we always have. One of the questions that I got, and it's actually something I have thought a lot about, and it's a great worry of ours. We recognize that our little people need to be cuddled when they're sad. They need to be hugged, and they need to be sometimes taken out of mom's arms while they're crying. And that can be a really hard thing. And we are still going to be able to do that, albeit we may be in a gown, we may have a mask and some goggles or an eye shield. I'm not exactly sure yet. We're working on all those details as a district, but understand that we're going to make all of that. And once you cross that line and come through and make that, your child's going to feel safe, just like they do when they go to a hospital and they see people in masks and they see people in gowns. We just have to make that an acceptable thing for them to see. And I think we can do it. So preparing for remote learning, I know this was something that did not go beautifully for some families. I think the teams did an amazing job putting together what they could, but we all know that this kind of goes in conflict to what we believe as educators. We try to minimize children's screen time, not maximize it. So I think we've thought a lot about how we can do this going forward, taken some of the feedback from families, which was extremely helpful, and we've kind of come up with some tenets of moving forward. We're still looking at what it's going to look like, but there'll continue to be consistent communication. That was really helpful. Small groups seem to be the best way for teachers to reach families in Google Meets, and there'll be a set schedule, albeit it will not be a full day. We don't know exactly, but again, your child would not be in front of a screen for a full day, so what would that look like? We do have a wonderful curriculum that, again, we were out of school and not allowed to come in during the spring. We're allowed to be in school. School is open. So if we were to go remote, we have access to our tools. And I think that that will allow us to also create rich lessons. But Big Day for Pre-K, our curriculum, has a fabulous family page that we just hadn't rolled out yet. So we'll be rolling that out to families this year. And I think that you'll find to be a nice tool. And we'll roll it out either way. So it's something you have access to and you're already used to in the event we do go remote. So all of that, and some of you still may not want to send your children to preschool. I really understand. This is really, really hard. So if you have a child with special needs, we have one set of obligations. If you're a community peer, there's another set. So children with special needs, if you do not feel comfortable sending your child into school, you do not feel safe, you have an option to opt out, and we will get creative in how we figure out what that planning will be. We have an obligation to continue to provide service, and it will just, we need to figure out who is going to opt out to decide exactly what that's going to look like. Families and teaching teams in that event would have a meeting, probably once we know what it's all going to look like, to make sure that we can develop a plan that works for everybody. The tuition peers, there will not be a remote only option. If you opt out, you get your refund back. We collect a non-refundable deposit in the spring, but I have spoken to Miriam, who is at the business office, and she and the superintendent are in agreement that the refunds, your deposit would be refunded if you opt out before school starts. After school starts, that may be a separate question. I'm not exactly, I hear somebody crying. So if you opt out after school starts, again, these are things that I know the district team is looking at in terms of what sort of commitment to opting out has to be. Another question that came up, and I do answer this, it was an interesting idea, was what if you're not ready to start until your older children transition from remote to hybrid? And can we hold your spot, and can you start at that time? That's under consideration. It probably is something we can manage, but I'm not quite sure yet. We'll have to see how this process unfolds. Things change every day, but I think we're pretty reasonable in how we think about and try to process all of this. So that brings me to question and answers. So these questions were questions that people had sent in ahead of time. I've kind of grouped them. This first one is about enrollment. When will the new application be ready? So there is going to be a new application. So everyone who is a community peer will fill it out and choose your first and second choice. And then we'll go through a process much like we did in the spring based on who actually chooses to come. After this is approved through school committee, then we'll be able to take that next step. Are you accepting new students? Right now, if anyone were to come through the door now, after July 31st, we are not accepting new students. Once we know where the dust settles and if we have openings and if we feel safe enough and that to do that, then yes, we will, because our goal is to provide integrated classrooms where children with and without special needs get to learn side by side, and our community peers play a big role in that. Are the times going to be the same, and when will we know our child's schedule? The times, as far as I know right now, they're going to be the same. I do anticipate some challenges with transportation. Some of our children with special needs require transportation, and that might bump into elementary start time. So right now there's no plan to change time, so I think we could go with that. But again, I think there might be some challenges with school provided transportation. When will you know your child's schedule? Once I send that out, people will have to respond within a week, and then I can let you know. So hopefully within 2 weeks, you know where your child is. I understand that's the hard part, is the scheduling, especially for people who are working. And I realize that is a challenge, but we have to follow the process, and the process has to go through school committee, and then we can send it out to families. Can I delay my child's enrollment? Again, we touched on that. How will families be prioritized for peer slots in this new round? Students, this is similar to the form earlier. Students enrolled at ECDC in the spring would be first. Siblings of students that were enrolled in ECDC in the spring would be second, and then new families. Will we have the option to switch days and time? Oops, sorry. I'm just going to answer it because I'm not sure how to go backwards. Once you will be switching based on what you were in the spring, probably doesn't exist anymore. So everyone will be changing. So the next were more answers around protocols, building protocols, and I do put a link up here to the district website. We have a great district website for a return to school plan, and there are committees working on all sorts of things, and this is where a lot of the decisions are beyond just ECDC, they're district-wide. So what is the procedure for if and when student staff members exhibit symptoms or test positive? All of that, we will have clear protocols in place. The committees are finalizing those, and as soon as they're ready, they will be able to be viewed on the district plan. But a lot of these procedures are being done at the district level, and they're still in process. Like, should a teacher or student test positive, what is the recommendation? Would the recommendation be to just quarantine one class? There's a lot of things we have to work out, and we're still doing it. Will teachers rotate in classrooms? Better for same teacher for each classroom. We are minimizing the amount of contact in a specific classroom. It's really important that we do that we minimize the number of staff going in and out of a room, and we are working with our team to do that. We do have some children who need services, and how do we do that, and how do we make it still a safe environment? And again, that's part of the reason why we stayed at a class size at 7, because even a class size at 7, if we have, say, 4 adults in that room, we still only have 11 people in that space. And our classrooms are a really good size, and I think it still allows for that. That was something really, again, Paula Morano and I really agreed on that being a priority. How will you handle a child with an aversion to masks? With social stories, with compassion, with coaching with the family, and if they just can't do it, we'll just work with you. We understand. Again, we recognize where our kids are. The goal is that they all wear a mask. We know scientifically that it makes a difference. But if they can't, we won't torture them to do it either. We will help you, we'll provide guidance, and sometimes we just won't be able to do it. But then we will be more more covered in PPE. So you can expect if your child's a child who can't wear a mask, then his teaching team will probably also have eye goggles on or a shield with their mask. I am trying to get clear masks that don't get all yucky because we're trying to show the face. These are the efforts we're trying to make it a warm and welcoming place, still practicing all that we need to do to make sure children are safe. Protocols for entering the building, will there be temperature checks? Right now, the staff, I have to follow the protocols of the town for workplace environments, and we are doing that. I am not sure that is something that is in process. Right now, the anticipation, and I believe Dr. Ahern said this at the family meeting, is that families will self-check at home, staff will self-check at home, and when they come in, staff will also do a visual. So we do this now. Some of you may have already experienced this. You bring your child, we look, we say, wait a minute, your child's eye's a little pink. Let's go see Nurse Suzanne. Or, oh, your child is coughing. He doesn't seem to feel so good. Or you can tell sometimes in the eyes, and we'll bring them to Nurse Suzanne. Same sorts of things are going to happen. We're going to do a visual check on every child, and if we're concerned, Nurse Suzanne will check them out and may send them home. We do have to be prepared for families to keep children home a little more often than we did before. And that kind of is a tricky thing for us because we really want your children in school, but recognizing that if your child's sick in any way, it's safer for you and for your child and for all of us if your child stays home till they're feeling better. This is about general programming. Will there be a hybrid program? We are actually not going to do a hybrid. We're just doing we have modified our in-person option to do cohorts to keep class size small. Will students have snack time, and what will that look like? They'll still have snack and lunch at school. There'll be protocols developed. We haven't quite gotten to that level yet. They just have to be 6 feet apart to be able to have their mask off in the classroom to have their lunch. And again, if class size is small enough, that would be safe. If the classroom is not, then we figure out to do it in a different space, split the group, do something. But those are protocols that we're working on. How will the school be able to staff classrooms if class sizes are halved and twice as many classrooms are needed? Everyone can't come. Unfortunately, the number of community peer slots goes down. However, we've had many who have withdrawn, and my expectation is that there are a bunch of people who just aren't comfortable sending. So we're hoping that it isn't a huge influx, because that it isn't a huge reduction. But yes, there are fewer slots. It's the best we could do. Will you be meeting with parents whose children have an IEP to discuss how this new learning model will impact students and their individual needs and goals? I expect that part of our transition back will be to connect with parents so that parents and staff have a good understanding of where their children are. And then it will take a few weeks for us to get our eyes and a good sense on where your child is in the transition. Got to give them a few weeks, but yes, there'll be meetings, there'll be talking, we'll be in touch. It's going to be a very connected. You're going to have a very close relationship in this, because without that, we're not going to be able to help each other. And that's it. So for now, we're all in this together. If you have any other questions, you can email me. Were there any questions, Suzanne and Meg? You just call them out to me and I'll do the best I can.
Hi. There were a couple hellos.
Oh, hello.
One question was, will siblings be grouped together to reduce the exposure?
So that is, I think this is something that I really, it has to be on a case-by-case basis, because some of our children, if they're in the same classroom, it could be detrimental to one child, to their learning. So I think it is a conversation we're willing to have. I know a few parents have suggested they would like that. And if it makes sense, it is something we are absolutely willing to consider.
The next one you've touched on, but will there be testing of children's temperatures prior to entering the building daily?
So no testing of temperatures. I think as a district that I think the value of that is still out. So we have decided self-check. We encourage families to check temperatures at home. You're going to have to fill out a digital form at home every day. That's your self-check that your child does not have, and there'll be key questions. Is your child coughing? Is your child have a fever? Does your child, have a rash? Certain questions that align with COVID-19 and exactly what we'd be looking for. So you can expect that to be on the self-check that you will have to do every morning. And we encourage you to take your child's temperature and keep your child home. That said, if the child comes in and doesn't look right, we're going to ask you, and we may ask you to take that child home more readily than we would have in the past.
I think you touched on this one, but maybe a little more clarification. So when would a second lottery take place and when would we be notified? I think you mentioned it might be a 2-week process, but do you know when school committee is voting?
So I have just been invited to the 15th, to the 11th, so next Tuesday. I would expect it would be approved that night or not approved that night. Whatever they're going to do would make that decision that night. And so if that best case scenario is if it's approved, then the next day or two, we get our application information out and send that out so that we could then turn it around. But it's going to take it, again, I'm thinking about 2 weeks.
There was a question about whether or not there might be a remote option for families on Wednesdays when there is no school.
No, we don't have the capacity for that right now, and I'm not sure the remote, we have determined remote is not in the best interest of our kiddos. So what's going to happen on Wednesdays, all of our teachers will be doing IEP testing, evaluations, IEP meetings, and they will be also, just really doing a deep clean, preparing for the next cohort.
There's another question just about the schedule. So it says 4 half-days, 2 half-days, or 2 days that are 4 hours. And it says, isn't 4 hours a half-day, or what is considered a half-day?
Yeah, so public school, we're not, in the childcare world, 4 hours is considered a half-day. For us, it's actually almost a full day. It's, we call it an extended morning, and it gives children a little bit more time in school. I will tell you, in terms of the number of slots available, the most slots that are available are in the, I think they're in the 4 hour, and the least number are in the 4-day 2 hour. There are only 6 slots available for that. So there aren't many. The others, there are many more. But just to be honest with you, as you start to make decisions.
There was a question about children who used school van transportation last year. Do they need to do anything this year to get that going again?
No, we will be on it. We will be letting you know. If you're already there, don't worry. We will. Mrs. Morano there will take care of it.
A question about how we might handle social distancing with 3-year-olds, since not all of them may listen.
So this is an interesting thing, and I'm going to tell you that I have met with many other people in this field, and some child cares that have opened already. We understand that Hand washing is probably going to be our best friend. We do not want to create an environment where children are kept in boxes so that they are socially distanced. We will design our rooms to allow that there are separate spaces, so it's not necessarily as easy, but we will create opportunities for children to be near each other and playing together just with different materials. We understand and expect 3-year-olds to have a hard time with social distancing, and we'll just teach them, but it's how we set up the room and it's how we approach it when it happens. And it's going to happen. We're just going to wash a lot of hands and help them make sure they've got their masks on.
A question, if a parent decides to opt out this year because they're not comfortable, how might they be prioritized for next school year?
That is a great question. I think that's a great question. I'll have to think about it, but I do think that I think that's something we can definitely make note of and put that in the list of priorities for next year, because again, I understand the decision to send a child to preschool in this crazy time is a really hard one. And if you have to make that decision to opt out, we do want you back. So I think, I think we can talk about that.
There's another great question for somebody who had registered their child for 4 days this year because it's the year before kindergarten. They're wondering if people opt out, might they be able to add in a day or two just to sort of help with that preparation for kindergarten?
If they opt out,
if other people opt out, I guess if there's room in the schedule.
I'd say down the line we could look at that. Right now, I'm pretty holding tight to keeping my cohorts together and keeping them small and not mixing. But yeah, I would say if it is something that you're interested in, if we go to a place where we're in a safer place as a community, it may be something we'd look at, but not in the beginning.
Just a question about anyone who might have been a little late to the meeting. Where might they be able to find the recording?
So this is my first time. I am crossing my fingers that the recording worked. I'm actually going to share the presentation again via the email that everyone got. We'll probably post it on our website. And there is going to be a tab on the reopening website for the district that has preschool. It's still in progress, but we're going to have our own tab. So there'll be several places, but I will send it out via regroup to everyone.
A question about if a family doesn't feel comfortable sending their child in the fall, might they be able to join in the spring?
So you know what's kind of tricky about that is I really feel like I can just work in what I know now. And if I have openings in the spring and we're still in this small size and we're still okay, then I'll feel okay with it. If the environment, if the virus isn't under control, I might not be okay with it, but you might not want to send them at that point either. So I'm open to it when it's safe to do so and when I have an opening.
Another question just about the proposed schedule. Could you just run through the options again?
Sure. So there will be, there are only 6 slots because it is only really one class. So there's 3 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon for 4 days, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, 2.5 hours. Most kids will come to be in either one of the cohorts, which will be Monday, Tuesday, 4 hours, Thursday, Friday, 4 hours, or Monday, Tuesday, 2.5 hours in the morning, Monday, Tuesday, 2.5 hours in the afternoon, Thursday, Friday, 2.5 hours in the morning, and Thursday, Friday, 2.5 hours in the afternoon. Our times, just if people don't remember, 9:15 is our start. So the morning session goes 9:15 to 11:45. The afternoon session goes 12:45 to 3:15. And the 4-hour session goes 9:15 to 1:15.
A question about teachers and whether or not they've been supportive about coming back, and if you know if any have opted out of coming back.
So I think my teachers have been very supportive, but I also think that they are very cautious about what we're going to do and want to make sure that we have the supports. As of right now, I don't know if of any that have opted out, but it could happen. I mean, my teachers are wonderful women with families of their own and situations of their own, and may have to make decisions that are their own, just like you have to make a challenging decision that's your own.
A question about what happens if a child starts in the fall and then shows sort of the signs of distress with the new protocols. Are they able to move to a remote learning experience?
A child with special needs, if they were, we would be able to do that. Not for our community peers. Unfortunately, we don't have the capacity, and I'm not exactly sure what the remote learning would look like. It wouldn't necessarily look like their class day. It might be something like the child just comes in for, say they need a speech service for 30 minutes once a week. Say they need OT for 30 minutes once a week, and they do like a parent consult or something. It's not going to be like remote learning was necessarily in the spring, because it necessarily wasn't as beneficial as it could be. So we still have to work out those details, but there are options there.
There was just a question, could you just repeat about whether or not children will be required to wear masks, just in case anyone was late?
Children will be required to wear masks. Families are to supply masks. We will be asking that you actually supply 2 masks, so that if your child happens to chew on it, drool on it, need another, that you have another. If children for some reason don't have a mask, we will have some masks available for them as well. However, there are children with special needs, whether they be medical or they be educational or developmental, that they could not wear a mask, and that would be there's going to be a process for that in the district developed on how that is, but we will help families through that process. But the expectation is, because science has demonstrated that it's beneficial, and I feel better having seen some of my colleagues who have done this already, that kids are playing with masks on and they're happy in classrooms. And that was my real worry. And I believe we can do this now after the research I've done. So yes, they have to wear masks.
If children live with family members who are high risk, for example, grandparents, how will these children be placed in cohorts? Will they be placed in a smaller class, for example? Or is a child able to start remotely in the fall and potentially move in the spring?
Again, I think it depends on if it's a child with special needs. And if you opt out, those are decisions I think that are going to be made as a district, not necessarily just ECDC, but we can get some more information on those pieces. In terms of putting children in cohorts, we actually have, when we place children, there's a lot of pieces that we have to consider, and once they're placed, that will be their cohort that they're placed with.
If ECDC needed to move to a remote model, would teachers still have access to materials?
Our expectation is yes. At this point, if we were to go into an emergency remote model as we did before, it's different because we now have the protocols in place to keep people safe. And at the higher grades, the remote expectation is that teachers are actually teaching remotely from their classrooms because that's where all their materials are. So yes, we expect them to have access to materials, and we expect them to be able to provide things like, and we haven't figured out the system for this, but in the event we do that, things like books or, you know, craft supplies or activities, things to families who need it, want it, or even just to cover, to help address the curriculum. It will be different.
A question about pre-kindergarten students to be maybe prioritized for 2 4-hour days. Is that an option?
I don't know, to be honest. I'm not sure. I have to see when the numbers come in and who comes in, and if I can do that, because it wouldn't, I have to look at that. I understand where you're coming from, but I can't guarantee that right now. I just want to let people know I really want to end right at 7 so that just it's been a while, but I'll take a few more questions and end as close to 7. But if you have other questions, we will answer them, but just either in a frequently asked question document or another email that goes out.
A quick appreciation for students that are able to go back so that they can have their needs met. And also another question about donation or help with any materials such as Lysol wipes, face shields, if there's any way that families can help.
So that's a wonderful gesture to both. Grateful, thank you. I'm not sure what we need yet, but I'm sure we'll need some things along the way, and we will need families' help. And I think, you know, the PCC has always been helpful in kind of coordinating that for us. So hopefully we'll be able to still have Carrie Ann on board, and she'll help us with that, and we'll see where we go from here. But yes, I'm grateful to whatever we need. But I do want to say the town is committed to providing us PPE and Lysol and all Lysol wipes, not Lysol, whatever kind of wipes, all of those things, they're committed to providing that. So you don't feel you have to send, that's not what we need.
Okay. And then just another question about, I think in terms of the lottery, if a child is still taking a nap in the afternoon and a parent would maybe prefer a morning, they're just curious on how we're assigning or not assigning and parents choose which session.
So I think it's going to come down to, I'll do the best I can. You know, we can really, unfortunately, I don't have the capacity I had before to meet every family where they're at. And it may mean that you change your child's nap time or it doesn't work for you. And I understand that. It's not a great place to be, but this was the way I was able to provide face-to-face, in-class learning opportunities for the most students in a way that was the safest for all. And I realized for all might not work for everybody.
I think that's it.
Oh,
I think I got everything.
Well, I am very grateful. This is a very strange format to be doing this in. Again, I actually could only see Suzanne and Meg's faces through the whole thing. So to all of you whose beautiful faces I wish I could see, I can't. And again, I don't know enough about this medium to fix it. I'm grateful for your understanding during this time. I think we're doing the best we can. Our teachers are working so hard to try to learn a new medium. They did amazing things in the spring, but it isn't how we want to teach our little ones. We know they need to be in person. I hope and pray everything goes well and that we're able to come together in person. I do know that the start of school that's going, I think, to the school committee also on Tuesday night will be, we got 10 extra days, so around the 16th or 17th. would be the start of school of September, which is a little later. Usually families would know their teacher by August 15th-ish for a September 1st start. So don't expect to know your actual classroom teacher till like the second week in till the first week in September, so that we really have time to put everything together. But you'll know your session before then. Okay, so if anyone has other questions, email me, call me, willing to talk to anyone. We're doing the best we can in a situation that doesn't really have a great answer. There's no solution that works for everyone. What really we need to get this virus under control so we can all be safely back in school together. You know where to find me. Thank you so much for coming.